Oil has always been a political lightning rod. Countries have fought wars to control oil fields. And they say water could be next. We keep hearing about water wars in the future. And there's one reason for that. Climate change is making water a prized commodity. Look at what's happening in the Horn of Africa. It is a region located in the eastern part of the continent. Look on the map, it looks like a horn. Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia and Djibouti are part of this region. Some lists also include Kenya and the Sudan. Now, why am I talking about the Horn of Africa today? Because people in this region are suffering. Almost 140 million people live in the Horn of Africa. They're facing an unprecedented drought. 4 rainy seasons have failed in 2 years. Experts say a 5th is on the cards. The period from October to December is expected to be drier than normal, which means the drought will drag on. It is the worst situation in almost 40 years. I'll show you the numbers. 66 million people are facing a food crisis. 66 million people. 22 million are at the risk of starvation. 10 million children have been affected so far. 1.8 million of them need urgent medical help. Somalia is probably the worst affected. Listen to how this climate expert, in fact, described the looming tragedy there.
To give you an idea of how bad the situation is, the drought of 2010-11 that was responsible on estimate the death of around 250,000 Somalis was only due to 3 failed rainy seasons. So this is going to the 5th.
Let me repeat that for you. In 2010 and 2011, 3 rainy seasons failed. As a result, around 250,000 Somalis died. This time, 4 rainy seasons have already failed, and a 5th one seems certain. Not just that, the global food situation is a lot worse. The war in Ukraine has led to supply shortages. Wheat prices are up almost 60% in Africa, and the result is this. Countries like Somalia are on the verge of a famine.
Unprecedented failure of 4 consecutive rainy seasons, decades of conflict, mass displacement, severe economic issues are pushing many people to the brink of famine. And these conditions are likely to last through at least to March 2023.
Imagine that. A famine in 2022. Indications are it has already set in. 700 children have already been reported dead in Somalia. They died of malnutrition. The question is, what can we do to prevent a larger tragedy? The United Nations is hoping to raise $1.5 billion. Around 67% of that has already been achieved. But experts say it is too little, too late. The root problem remains this crisis. Behind this crisis is still climate change. What is the world doing to address that? On Monday, top officials from world bodies met in Rotterdam. They agreed to spend $25 billion by 2025. On what? Helping Africa combat climate change. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but consider 2 things. Number one, the scale of the problem. Africa needs $1.4 trillion in green financing in this decade. $1.4 trillion. That's around $200 billion every year. And what is the West willing to give? $25 billion over 5 years. Do you see the problem here, the gap? The announcements may sound massive, but compared to the scale of the problem, they're negligible.
I think that the European Union, like most partners, has will. Only we can consider that this will is not sufficient, seen from our side, from the African side. But we can't say that they don't have will. But what is done is very little. What is done is not up to what's at stake.
Good, but not enough. And that's one part of the problem. The second is historic responsibility. Africa makes up just 3 to 4% of global emissions. At the same time, it is home to 17% of the world's population. Do you see the disparity there? Africa is not responsible for the drastic climate events around us, yet they're the ones facing the worst consequences. How do we correct this injustice? There's only one way. Western countries must pay up and don't just give the financial excuses. The US has spent almost $10 billion arming Ukraine, $10 billion. $10 billion in 6 months. And they're spending $93 billion to land people on the moon. Surely they can do more for Africa. The fact is, it's all about political priorities. When it suits them, Western leaders line up to court Africa. In July, Italy's Prime Minister Mario Draghi visited Algeria. Why? To secure their gas supplies. Last month, French President Emmanuel Macron visited Algeria. Why again? For gas supplies. Even before that, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited Africa. Why? To counter Russian influence. You see, for the West, Africa means two things: a place to gather resources and a playground to battle Russia and China. Nothing more than that. Until we change this attitude, the world cannot help Africa. It is not a basket for you to dump aid money. It is not a frontier to play another Cold War. It is the proud home of 1.4 billion people. And right now, they need urgent help. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.